Terry Brooks has set far more trends than he has followed. Far too often he is written off as being derivative to Tolkien, but that's only true about the first novel within a 30-book series called Shannara. And this video is dedicated to the second saga within this series called The Heritage of Shannara. And yes, in this series, Terry Brooks essentially invents Morrowind. But there are even greater triumphs in this arc. This arc begins with the Scions of Shannara, published in 1990. The Federation of the Southland has enslaved the dwarves, outlawed magic, and driven the elves on the brink of extinction. Two brothers, Par and Call Omsford, must navigate a land where magic is criminal. Now, Call has not inherited the magic of his forefathers, but Par has been bestowed with the Wish Song. And with it, the two brothers travel throughout the Four Lands, going from tavern to tavern, using it to paint hologram-like visions for all to see the triumphs of the Omsfords. But when the Federation catches on, they send Rimmer Dahl to hunt for them. Luckily, they are rescued by Potashar Creel, leader of the Freeborn Resistance, the greatest adversary of the Federation. The brothers no longer have an option to go home. But when Par starts to have visions in his dreams of Alenon, the great last druid who has been apparently dead for generations, he and Call must navigate a land plagued by the Shadowwen, demonic entities that inhabit the wilderness, consuming any they can get their hands on, but their favorite delicacy are those with magic. Alenon has the two brothers, along with their cousins, Walker Bow, a hermit sorcerer who wants nothing to do with this, as well as Ren Elesidil, a rover girl who knows nothing of her background, to meet at a secluded mystical lake, where they are confronted by Alenon's shade, a sort of specter from beyond the grave. He gives them each a charge, a nearly impossible task to complete in order to bring magic back to Shannara and defeat the Shadowwen. The first novel primarily follows Par and Call Omsford on their journey to find the Sword of Shannara, an all-powerful artifact that's been lost for generations. The second novel, The Druid of Shannara, was published in 1991. The Druid of Shannara centers on Walker Bow's journey and his charge. Now, Walker has always been an outcast. He's been ridiculously powerful with magic, a natural, something unseen for quite a while. This has made all who should have been his friends fearful of him and ridicule him. Eventually, he's become a hermit, secluding himself from society and living out in the wilderness. So at first, it makes sense that Walker wants nothing to do with his charge. He doesn't want anything to do with magic. He's sick of it. But thanks to Par's endless optimism and faith he has in his cousin, he eventually, reluctantly, accepts his charge to restore the lost druid's keep of Paranor and bring back the druids by finding the Black Elf Stone, a task even more impossible than finding the Sword of Shannara. Following the advice he gets from a spirit who wants him dead, he finds himself climbing the mountains and entering the Hall of Kings, where the Black Elf Stone is said to be hidden. But of course, this place has defenses worthy of its treasure. Walker passes every trial and eventually comes to a crevice in the floor. Now, with his magic, he can sense that this is the one place where the Black Elf Stone would be hidden. It requires him to reach inside blindly and grab it. He rises above his mores, swallows his responsibility, and reaches his hand into the crevice. But the Black Elf Stone is gone, and in its place is an Asphinx, a small snake-like creature that, like a bee, ends its own life as it ends yours. You see, as soon as it bites you, as soon as its venom touches you, it acts like a curse, turning your flesh to stone. Now, any mere mortal would have turned into a statue within hours or even minutes. But Walker, his quick instinct to rely on his magic, is what leads him to survive. But, like I said, this Asphinx turns itself to stone as it gets you. So it's fused with his hand inside of a crevice and he cannot pull it out. He's stuck in this position. And what comes next is a bit like the movie 127 Hours. He is unable to reach out of the crevice for several days, stuck in one position. And if he loses concentration on his magic, the curse will shoot up and completely swallow him and he will die. So he's stuck there, becoming more and more mad by his position. Eventually, he gets his other hand on something sharp and hard enough to break away at the arm that has become stone. And yes, at this point, it's not just his hand, it's risen up all the way to his shoulder. So depleted, exhausted, starving, and dying of dehydration, he leaves the Hall of Kings and wanders down the mountain in search for help. Now, this is my favorite novel of the series, my personal favorite. I think it's a top-tier fantasy, and I don't want to ruin it. I'll go a little bit farther. So eventually, Walker finds the help of Quickening, a woman who has been created by the King of the Silver River, using pieces of his garden. He's this spirit, almost pseudo-god-like entity. Her heart was once a dove. Her skin is soil and greenery. But she appears as a woman, though. You wouldn't assume that she's made of these things. And she has a tremendous power. And she's been created not to save Walker, but to enlist Walker as part of a group who must go and confront Ul Belk, who is actually the one responsible for stealing the Black Elf Stone. He is the one who left the Asphinx. And he has not just turned Walker's arm into stone, he's turned an entire city into stone. And that magic is spreading. Eventually, his goal is to turn the Four Lands, and eventually the world, into stone, to preserve it, to protect it. He's lost his mind. Now, Quickening, the team she puts together is quite strange, but she's been instructed clearly that each of these individuals are necessary to complete the task. Now, of course, we have Walker, and we have Walker's great friend, Morgan Leah, who is another incredible, incredible character. We can't go too deeply into him just now, but he quickly falls for Quickening. Morgan is in love with her. They all feel a deep connection with this woman, but his is directly of the heart. But he's not the only one who falls in love with her. No, there's another named Pael. Now, Pael was contracted by Rimmer Dahl, the one who was sent to hunt Par and Cole Umsford, to kill Quickening. So he's an assassin, and he carries a blade that can kill anything. Stab anything with it, they die. But here's the thing. He falls in love with Quickening. So it's this dichotomy. Now, he has an almost serial killer sort of psychology going on. He's debating with himself constantly when is going to be the right moment to kill her, because he feels that when he kills someone, he owns them. And so he wants to have her forever. He's a terrifying character, but he's a well-rounded character. And this is part of why this particular fantasy book is genius. It's genius. You have villains that you at times are rooting for accomplishing what they want to accomplish, not because of what they want to accomplish is good, but because their reasons for doing so are so clear and so strong and true to their own character. Terrifying, horrifying character, but you also are constantly expecting this confrontation to occur. But they're a team. They're all sent to kill Ul Belk, and he doesn't want to kill Quickening before that happens. He wants to accomplish this task because Pael learns about the Black Elf Stone, and he wants the power himself. He doesn't want Rimmer Dahl to have it. So his plan is to get the Black Elf Stone and then kill Quickening. But I won't go any farther than that because I cannot ruin this story. If you're intrigued, please pick up these books. Now, finally, I'm going to get into book number 3, published in 1992, The Elf Queen of Shannara. Yes, this one invents Morrowind. Ren Alesadil's charge is to bring back the lost elves of the Four Lands. And through her journey, she eventually learns that they have been secluded to a far-off island in order to survive. She travels to this island, known as, wait for it, Morrowindle. Yes, it's literally Morrowind with an L at the end. And this came first. This was a huge inspiration for the original Bethesda team. You see, it doesn't just share the name of the place, but also the geography is dominated by an unstable volcano. And so there's ash raining down. There are swamps littering this island with dark, terrifying creatures. There are magical walls that protect a city, lots of little things. Ren has to journey this land in order to find the elves, which is much, much more difficult than you'd expect. It's a big island. This all culminates into a catastrophe due to the misuse of magic and a get to the choppa level ending, where they must escape this terrible island as if it's a war zone. Now, I'm not going to get into book 4 because it's primarily a resolution to all of these plot points, to where they all sort of coincide. But I will say that I believe the journey is more important than the destination here. Now, I came to this shortly after reading all of the Cosmere by Brandon Sanderson, and I had a preconception that Terry Brooks was going to be like Lord of the Rings light. But no, this is all very novel. This is all unique. It's all beautiful. The prose is just thick enough to give you that vibrancy of the world, but also it moves at a clipping pace. You're constantly being thrown into new situations, being introduced to interesting characters. Like I said, this is where I started with the series, and I would recommend you to start here as well. And one last thing I'd like to add, Terry Brooks, just this week, announced that he's done writing. Not just Shannara, but he's done writing. Now, I didn't know this when I was originally planning this review. It comes as a shock, and it really sucks because this guy, I think, deserves far more attention. When I look up reviews for Terry Brooks, there's just not anywhere near enough views. This guy is not Lord of the Rings light. It's got more to it. It made me look back at all fantasy I'd read before and feel that it was lacking. It makes me look at fantasy authors ahead and expect more. Thank you so much for subscribing. I really appreciate all of the comments, likes, all that stuff. I appreciate you taking the time out to watch this. Now, I kind of had to rush with this video, so it may be coming out a day or so late. That's because I released an album this week with my band Sleep Cycle, which is sort of progressive rock, but it's unique, like Terry Brooks. Check it out if you get the chance. I'll have the link in the bio. It's called Beautiful Gray. But otherwise, I'll see you next week.